Memorial Day remembers those who have given their lives fighting in various wars and conflicts ever since it was first established in the years following the Civil War. But after that, it began to be known to remember all those who gave their lives for any conflicts after that. Not only the Civil War, but also World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Gulf War, the Iraq War, the war in Afghanistan, and countless other conflicts that we have found ourselves to be a part of ever since. Now, amongst this long history of wars and conflicts, I'd like to pick one particular date. That date is March 23rd, 2003. Now, that date is not the most violent of any of our dates in history. That one belongs to the Battle of Antietam on September 17th, 1862. And this isn't even a part of the most bloody war fought on foreign shores. That, of course, is World War II. But on March 23rd, 2003, it's one of the longest days that I have ever experienced. And on that particular day, 29 Americans, both men and women, they joined the list of those who have given their lives for this country. It is a day that I will not forget. Now, that day began innocently enough when 17 vehicles from an Army maintenance convoy took a wrong turn in the pre-dawn darkness and stumbled into the city of An Nazariya in Iraq instead of their intended route, which would have taken them around it. Now, 11 of those soldiers who made that wrong turn added their names to those whom we honor this day. 6 more were taken prisoner that day by the enemy, including the now famous Jessica Lynch. Now, I was a part of Task Force Tarawa, the Marine Force operating just south of An Nazariya. I was a corporal in the infantry and was a gunner in the turret of a Humvee. Now, we received the call to go into An Nazariya just before dawn on that day on March 23rd. The call had gone out that these soldiers were in need of help, and the Marines quickly responded. Now, I will never forget the feeling of driving down that main road towards the city of An Nazariya, seeing the skyline off in the distance with smoke rising from it. And spread out through the fields on either side of that main service road, I saw an entire battalion of our artillery firing their 155mm howitzers as fast as they could. I tell you, it was a sight not soon to be forgotten. And as I got closer to the line of artillery firing, the noise was unbelievable. Until I realized, and the guys that were with me, that we were passing that line of artillery and are driving to where the rounds were falling. Now, that began for me the Battle of An Nazariya. And before that day was over on March 23rd, 2003, 29 Americans paid the ultimate price in that city. And those 29 names are among the thousands of names whom we honor today. Now, people back at home, when they hear of these lives given overseas, when they hear about the different body counts given on the news media, often don't understand why. Why would someone put themselves in harm's way? Why would someone give their life overseas? And joining the military is something most people don't do because, well, it's hard and you might get hurt. Going to a country embroiled by war is something that most people do because they don't understand the cause or they think that maybe somebody else should be fighting. Now, driving past that battalion of artillery, driving towards the smoke and the place of the impacts is something that most people don't do because, well, it doesn't make any sense. Who would go to where the fighting is? Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman, a retired Army Ranger, wrote a book that I read years ago. And in this book, he tried to answer that question. What kind of people make these decisions? What kind of person is it that would actually give their life for their country? Well, in our all-volunteer force that makes up the armed forces today, we see people from all different walks of life. We see the very rich, we see the poor, we see well-educated, we see those with high school diplomas. We see those with strong faith backgrounds, we see those without. But what separates those who go towards where the cannons are firing from those who would never even consider it? Now, Grossman suggests in his book that instead of trying to separate these people based on economic or social lines, he says that all people can be divided into 3 groups. Every person fits into either the sheep, the wolves, or the sheepdogs. Now, Grossman says that most people are sheep, and this isn't meant to be an insult. He said sheep are wonderful people. It's not a bad thing to be called a sheep. Sheep are those who go about their day-to-day lives. They live their lives, they serve their neighbors, they work, they play, they raise families. Sheep are good Americans. But sheep do not like to admit the possibility of evil. They don't like to think about it. They hope beyond hope that if they live their lives here, they don't bother their neighbor, they do the right thing, that evil will never cross into their day-to-day lives. They hope beyond hope for a world that has moved beyond the possibility of violence. They hope to build a world where there is no evil. But Grossman in his book says that although this hope is noble, it doesn't actually exist. There is truly evil in this world, both here at home and abroad. And there are evil people. These people he calls wolves. Wolves are those who would actually use violence to hurt or harm their neighbor. They would do anything it takes to try to advance their own causes, to rob a man by force, to make a woman his slave. Wolves are so bent by their ideology that they would stop at nothing less than subjecting the entire world to their destructive whims. And the wolves of this world today often target the Western countries, the United States in particular, because of the freedoms that we enjoy today, because of the world that we have built for ourselves. Now finally, there are the sheepdogs. The sheepdogs are those who recognize that there are those who would harm another human being, who would use violence to advance their own cause. Sheepdogs do not deny the existence of wolves. They don't turn a blind eye to violence. And sheepdogs will do whatever it takes to protect the sheep from the wolves. Now often to the sheepdogs look threatening. Their very presence may make sheep uncomfortable. See, in many ways, the sheepdogs look a lot like the wolves. They may have fangs. They do have a capacity for violence. But the thing that separates the sheepdogs from the wolves is that a sheepdog will never harm one of the sheep. But in times of violence, suddenly the sheep recognize their desperate need for the sheepdogs. Remember back in the days and weeks following 9/11, when our country was violently attacked by the wolves? Well, then suddenly the sheepdogs were on everybody's mind. The policemen, the firefighters, the soldiers, the sailors, the airmen, the Marines were everybody's heroes. People knew that the sheepdogs were there to protect them, and everybody recognized that they had a need for this protection. But now a few years have passed. The wolves seem very far removed. The violence seemed to have moved to another place, and the sheep have gone back to wishing that the wolves didn't exist, and thinking that perhaps they're not so much in need of their protection. But to sheepdogs, this doesn't make any sense. So they act. They act to protect the sheep, because the sheep ultimately are their families, their friends, their neighbors, their fellow Americans. The sheepdogs are those who would go to go where the cannons are firing. They are the ones who feel the need to enlist, to join up, to go in harm's way, and if need be, to pay the ultimate price, if only to protect those sheep. No, this doesn't make sense to a sheep. But to a sheepdog, there really is no alternative. And today, this Memorial Day, we thank those who paid the ultimate price. They did it fully aware of the staggering cost it may cost them. Each one of them went knowing that whatever sacrifice they were called to make, well, it's acceptable to protect those back home. And I believe that every one of those who did not make it home in any of these wars and conflicts would do it again if given the chance. Because that is who they are. They are sheepdogs. They are patriots. They are heroes. And so do not ever let anyone tell you that their sacrifice wasn't worth it. The fact that today we gather in an auditorium and we walked in here in a place that was not surrounded by barbed wire. We didn't have to walk through a landmine to get here, and none of us had to walk past an armed guard in order to gather this day, is a testament to those who paid that price. The fact that today all of us will go home to a home and look out a window that does not have iron bars on it. The fact that we will go to sleep tonight without fear of violence. The fact that we have gone in this nation over 145 years without a war fought on our shores is a testament to those who served. To those who brought the battle to the enemies on his turf. To those that recognize that the death of any number of wolves is worth the price to keep them from ever crossing into our beloved country. Yes, I know that the life of a single son or daughter killed on a foreign shore is impossible to give a value to. And on that long day and long night of March 23rd, 2003, 29 of those priceless sacrifices were given. on the bridges and roads of Van Nazareth in Iraq. What the freedom that they and so many others purchased for you and me, we could never fully appreciate what that has purchased for us and for this country. And so this Memorial Day, we honor those men and women. Though their names might be forgotten, their sacrifices are not, because we cannot forget them. Because every time we look out and see the freedoms that we enjoy, we remember what they have purchased for us. And we as a nation stop and thank God for giving us those who are willing to go, to where the cannons are firing, to fight and die and win for us the freedoms which we enjoy today. May God bless America.